Welcome, everyone, to the Aspen City Council regular meeting of May 12th. It is 5 p.m., and we're about to get started. It's a nice day and lots of clouds, but no rain. We need a little more rain out of that. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask Nicole, can you call the roll, please?
Councillor Benedetti.
Here.
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Richards.
Here. And we have no scheduled public appearances today. We will go straight into citizens' comments and petitions. I will take anyone in the room first, and then we will go online. Please raise your hand, sir. Come on up and make your comments. And we have about 3 minutes, and identify yourself for the record.
Andrew Sandler, good to be here. I haven't made a public comment in about 7 years.
Okay.
I used to wing it, but I wrote it down this time. And it's about the cameras at the entrance of town. Tonight's discussion is about more than cameras. It's about the long-term relationship between public safety, privacy, civil liberties, and the character of Aspen itself. Flock cameras are being presented as a tool for safety, and everyone here wants Aspen to remain safe. But we should be honest about what these systems are. These are not ordinary traffic cameras. They create searchable databases of vehicle movements, locations, patterns, and behavior. They normalize the collection and storage of data on ordinary people who are not suspected of committing crimes. And history consistently shows that once surveillance infrastructure is installed, it's used and expanded over time. Access expands, data sharing expands, retention periods expand, and eventually the definition of public safety expands as well. That should concern everyone regardless of political affiliation, because Aspen is not simply a resort town or a tourist destination. It is a real community made up of workers, families, immigrants, teachers, restaurant staff, tradespeople, small business owners, and locals who keep this town functioning every single day. Communities like Aspen depend on trust, and when people begin to feel constantly monitored, something changes psychologically. People become less open, less engaged, less trusting of local government. That does not strengthen a town. It weakens the social fabric that holds it together. There is also an important philosophical question that deserves consideration. Is this truly the direction Aspen wants to go? A town where every vehicle entering and leaving is logged, where private technology companies store movement data on residents and visitors, where surveillance systems become permanent because removing them later becomes politically impossible. Public safety matters deeply, but privacy, civil liberties, and the freedom to move through society without being tracked and cataloged matters too. Aspen has long represented independence, individuality, and a respect for personal freedom. Those values are part of what makes a community special. The character of Aspen will not ultimately be defined by how many surveillance systems are installed. It will be defined by whether the people who live and work here still feel trusted, respected, and free.
Thank you.
I just want to say, we always do things in the name of public safety, and we always give government, we think of government as this benign entity, when there are countless examples of the abuses, which we've seen in the last 12 years, 50 years, 100 years. They start conditioning us with these cameras. A year or two from now, they're going to come at you and they're going to talk to you about facial recognition. Then they're going to talk to you about the biometrics and the in-cabin camera systems that they're installing in cars. Then it will be connected to your social media posts and social media accounts. It deepens and becomes a spider web. And once you enter this, you can't get out. Now, the scarier thing is, this is just a small town.
You're at your 3 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't push the timer on Adam, but if you could wrap it up.
Yes, these cameras suck. Let's not put them in.
Okay, thank you. And let me clarify something for the rest of the public. We are not having a discussion on this item tonight. We discussed it last night in our work session, and I understand someone posted on Facebook and said we were discussing it tonight. So we're happy to take additional public comment on it, but we do not have the appropriate staff to respond to the concerns that you're raising. I do want to kind of note, oddly enough, we just got a citizen letter who would like to see us install speed cameras to start monitoring speed more carefully and complaints and noise within their neighborhoods. Flock cameras, we were very clear that that database can only be looked at by the Aspen Police Department. No other agencies are allowed to search our database. The information does not go to ICE. It does not go to the other organizations as you were talking about. But it is worth noting that there have been times when Amber Alert children have been identified by a license plate reader. When we've had thievery and burglaries within the downtown, those suspects have been caught using an ability to track their motions in their cars. I understand the concerns going forward, but I do have to say, in a small town with a limited budget, we're not going to have police enforcement everywhere all the time. This is a tool in a modern society. So we'll take the comments, perhaps discuss it again in the future, but we're not going to have a lengthy discussion on it tonight. So please, additional public comment, Megan Ruby over there. And thank you for coming, Adam. I appreciate your comments and your concerns. Andrew, sorry. That's my slip there. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Megan Ruby. I'm here today to follow up on the West End petition submitted on May 4th and to respectfully request that at least 2 West End resident representatives to be included on the West End Study Committee addressing traffic, noise, and speeding concerns so that local perspectives can contribute directly to the discussion. We appreciate the efforts that have been made so far to address these issues. However, many residents continue to experience ongoing challenges related to traffic volume, speeding, excessive noise. In some cases, previous measures appear to have redirected traffic into more concentrated areas rather than reducing overall impact. There is an opportunity to explore additional and innovative approaches that could further improve safety and quality of life in the West End. Modern technologies being used in other cities, and they are not using Flock, and they are not holding database. There are 8 different, so there's a lot of research that goes into this. To measure speed and excessive noise already exist, have demonstrated positive impacts, and can be implemented without significant expense and difficulty. We need to look at how our noise ordinance is measured, as we believe it is not being measured in the correct decimal code to capture the vehicles making the most disruptive noise, think bass noise. This specific information in the letter, there is specific information in the letter regarding that. There is growing evidence that chronic noise exposure can negatively affect both human and animal health, including increased stress and other long-term impacts, health impacts. Nicole has a copy of that study from UC Davis. Addressing these concerns would benefit both residents and the broader environment. Enforcement data should also be reviewed in context, as current citation numbers may not fully reflect daily traffic conditions or periods when enforcement is not present. We would appreciate clarification on how existing noise ordinances are being enforced, particularly regarding vehicles with modified or missing mufflers, which are consistent in the West End, which are not permitted under Colorado law. Looking at a construction vehicle permitting system, similar to models used in other jurisdictions, would also help in managing congestion associated with ongoing development. Another idea would be to put in place a rideshare app for carpooling and mandate 3-person carpool from 3 to 6 p.m. through the West End. This would help fill the empty seats in a single occupant vehicle and reduce overall traffic. Again, my ask tonight is that if there's a possibility of including at least 2 West End representatives to help oversee and be part of this West End traffic and noise study. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. We will be taking this very seriously. As someone with age-related tinnitus at this point, I do take noise and hearing disruptions pretty seriously.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir, please come on up and identify yourself for the record.
Hi, Kip Hubbard. I'm going to make it quick. It's also regarding the flock cameras. I really appreciate Andrew, sorry. His comments. I pretty much echo those comments. I think to me, the whole point of this is to be very conscious of what the potential is for that data usage. And Mayor Richards, I appreciate you letting us know what you talked about last night. That helps me in terms of just that it's on your radar, and it's important. And also what Andrew said was, once you go to a certain point, you can't go back. So that's basically what I wanted to say. I don't want to reiterate the same thing everybody else is going to say. That's all I really want to say. So
Appreciate your thoughtfulness and your concerns.
yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Additional public comment. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Rustin Gadim. I'm also here in regards to the flock cameras. I just want to have a quick kind of conversation with you guys about it. I'm wondering if Mayor Richards or anyone on the council could walk me through exactly what a flock camera is and how that data is stored.
I apologize, sir, but this is not a Q&A. And last night we had our police chief and all those people here. They are not here for tonight's meeting. And so I really can't respond. You can express your concerns,
Okay, that's
but
fine.
we don't have the back and
fine.
forth.
The reason I ask is that there seems to be a major gap between what we're being told and how this technology actually works. Chief Farber insinuated yesterday that these are just basic license plate readers, but that is not the full story. Flock's AI does much more than snap a photo of a plate. It builds a fingerprint of your car. It creates a profile that includes the make, model, color, and the specific details like roof racks, bumper stickers, and even dents and scratches. It also logs how many people are in the car, the time, and the exact GPS location. I'm also very concerned about the idea that APD will own this data. If our information is sitting on a private company's servers with no government oversight, do we really own it? Flock's own terms of agreement say they keep a perpetual, royalty-free right to use this data even after a city cancels its contract. If an agency does cancel its contract, it no longer has access to that data. That doesn't sound like ownership to me. Sounds like we're renting our own residents' privacy from a corporation. There's also some confusion regarding who gets to see this data. Yesterday, Chief Farber stated it wouldn't be shared with any other agency. In February, she stated that she intended to share the information with in-state agencies. So which is it? If she does in fact share the data with in-state agencies, then federal agencies like ICE can absolutely get their hands on it. While Flock doesn't have any contracts with federal agencies, state and local agencies have accessed the data on behalf of ICE over 4,000 times, and that was just between June of 2024 and May of 2025. We've already seen this play out with the LPR cameras in Snowmass and the Pickens County Sheriff's cameras. We also need to talk about the potential for abuse. There are documented cases of officers using this technology to stalk exes and their personal enemies. In Texas, a sheriff's deputy accessed thousands of cameras to track a woman who had a self-administered abortion, calling it a welfare check. It wasn't until the actual records were made public that it was revealed he was actually doing a death investigation of a fetus, planning on jailing the woman. In a 10-month period during the height of the protests, over 50 federal, state, and local agencies ran hundreds of searches in connection with protest activity. Flock is currently creating a system that is scraping the internet to build profiles on citizens that can then be linked to the license plate data. Law enforcement will be able to type in a license plate number and get a complete profile of the owner. Everything to who their spouse is, where they work, their income, address, phone number, and much more. Flock originally—
You need to wrap up now. It's your 3
I
minutes.
just have a bit more if you would grant me that.
Please.
Flock originally planned on buying this information off the dark web. They only changed course when their own employees spoke out. That is the ethics of this company. Is this really the kind of company you want Aspen to be in business with?
Thank you. I'm sorry, we have a 3-minute public comment, and I'd love to see you submit your written letters. I can see how you've put a lot of thought into it.
Well, I've actually emailed every one of you like 3 or 4 weeks ago about this, and not one of you responded to me.
Okay, I do not know if I got that, or others have, and I have been out of town the past 2.5 weeks, so
Well,
I apologize for that.
I will send to you guys, again, it's up to you whether you read it or not, but I will send you guys all the information where I've gotten my information from, all the data.
I
'Cause this
appreciate
is
that.
serious. I mean, this isn't
I fully
something for you guys to
understand.
take lightly, so,
Okay,
and it,
thank you. But again, I appreciate your research, and please resend, and we'll have those questions that you're brought forward answered or responded to. And the council may well end up discussing this a second time. Additional public comment? Anyone else here in the room? Francis?
Seat's warm. Mayor Richards,
Welcome.
members of City Council, good to be here. I'll try to lighten it up a little bit. The City Council meeting was announced today during Chef Mike's show on 10 till noon, that on KDNK, that there would be a city council meeting today.
On this topic, so yeah.
Yeah,
You
so,
can't get all your information from Facebook, you're going to be off.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't frequent social media too much, but I was at Marble Distilling last night, and they were talking about the Report for America reporter that was hired, and his name was announced, or her name, I don't remember. It was a great meeting, and then I took Megan Thackett, Greg Pauschman, and Aspen Journalism, Leah from EcoFlights, all to KDNK, and we had a half-an-hour discussion about what we're doing for the environment. I also had a great conversation with the Wilderness Workshop and a man named Rich. So this Report for America thing is great. I saw Bill Sterling. I like the KDNK, Aspen Journalism, and Aspen Daily News connection. It's really good to be part of the community up and down the valley. We have a lot of issues to solve, the curse of the Utes. I think this flock camera thing's part of that. It's a lot of fun being able to do that, and I'm glad to be part of the community. And glad we have two newspapers. I saw Bill Sterling at the supermarket the other day, which he told me that we're very fortunate to have two papers, and you know, the spotlight is on us here in Aspen. Considering that, we have the highest grossing Kroger's when John Haley was running it, the supermarket in the nation per square foot. I think they could at least grant our community sustainable packaging, recycling bins, and composting outside of their store. The other day, I forget what I got, but I couldn't put the package anywhere until I walked about 3 blocks to recycle it. I'm very concerned about that. And the last thing is green cuisine. You know that I'd like a cannabis-friendly event to go on. I talked to Trish Aragon, the city engineer, and she said, why don't we do it on the bridge, the old Highway 82 bridge that's outside, and you know, you could get to it by crossing the street underneath the, so I'll do a special events permit with the city, whatever we can. And thanks for Skinner's story on, and Roger Muralt about the a-holes, that Boogie was not. Can I say that?
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
thank you. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you, all of you. Please, sir.
Afternoon, Council. Mr. Darcy, Red Mountain Road. First of all, I'm deeply upset about the car share program. That was
The what?
Aspen car share program.
Okay.
That was a disaster. I found out the new Zip car is charging 69 cents per mile after 50 miles. They're going to look into that and see if it's more. And the idea of paying $35, if not $40, to go down to Glenwood Springs and back, and then find out you're being charged an extra 69 cents per mile after 50 miles is a disaster. And I spoke to Jeff and a few people at the car program, and they said they were getting rid of it because of all the paperwork. It was one of the best programs we had in Aspen, and now this Zip car is a disaster. I don't think I'll use it. I have to cancel my membership. And then the other issue I have with the price of gas, I would love to see on South Hunter Street from the gondola to the police station, they put in 5 new stop signs. There's no need for them. There's crosswalks there. And we don't need stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. There's really no need for that, Mayor Richards. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for taking the time to come in. We certainly will look into the Zip car program. We had heard that it was a good, solid substitute, and we will make corrections if it's not going to be that. I do think that on the street you're talking about to the gondola, we have seen a lot of concern with pedestrian safety and cars speeding at excessive speeds. And I think that that is a kind of classic control, unfortunately, of stop signs when you have the type of congestion and motorists and bicycles and everything like that in the same mix in a small town. So I will take that as a safety measure, and I do apologize that it is a little stop and go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time. Additional public comment here in the room. In the very back, please come forward, sir.
Hi, everybody.
Make sure there's a green light on that speaker side, next to the little speaker. Okay, I think you got it. Very good, thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Kokel, and I live in Aspen.
Hey, Kevin.
I'll be as quick as I can for y'all. Thanks for the opportunity. I don't really have anything to add in terms of, well-formulated opinion about it, but I just wanted to add my voice to the issue of the cameras, and just ask that each of you spend some time looking into the potential for abuse, and also to consider, as another gentleman said earlier, with how quickly technology changes in the modern era. I know legally the world is trying to catch up to the leaps and bounds that AI has made in moving things forward in terms of information gathering and processing. And I would just really caution us against adopting a technology that down the road can be used in a variety of ways. And I'm just personally uncomfortable with mass collection and retention of public data, recognizing always that, when we're driving, we're in public, but that's different than collecting and retaining mass amounts of data, which it would be possible to create a through line that talks about a person's life in a way that violates their civil liberties. I'll just add to that I think it's pretty dangerous around town with how fast people drive. So I'm totally cognizant, and I recognize what we're trying to accomplish with something like that. Frequently, I'm in the downtown core, and I see people just roaring by. So, and while I'm here,
Yeah, please, you got another minute and a half.
thanks, why not? We got to do something about the constant leaf blower noise around town. People just use these things like a magic wand, and it's so helpful for cutting down on labor, but they're being used in a lot of circumstances to blow dust on pavement. And what all this does is it just creates giant clouds of dust, and it's a noise problem that, to my way of thinking, is a bigger problem than what it's set out to solve. So.
Thank you for that comment. They should all be electric leaf blowers, so if you run into anyone who's pulling out a gas-powered, they're much noisier, but let us know, and we'll contact those landscapers and take a look at the bigger issue.
Yeah, it's more the constant nature of them than anything else. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Additional public comment? There being none, I will close the public comment section of the meeting, and we will go to special orders of the day. This is council members and mayor's comments. Who would like to start? Or have any comments today? No? No.
Just a quick congratulations and acknowledgement to 520 Grill for opening less than 2 weeks ago. It was a very speedy transition, and it's been busy every time I've passed by, so I wanted to say thanks to them for getting in there and getting up in action.
Very good.
I had lunch there today. It was delicious. I think I saw Tessa there today, too. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about water. Normally, I'm going to start with the Great Salt Lake. Currently, the Great Salt Lake is at 36% of its average historical volume. Antelope Island State Park is a 42 square mile state park that's normally in the middle of the lake, but because the water's so low, it's no longer an island because over 50% of the lake bed is exposed. Lake Powell currently is at 23% full. Lake Mead is down to 31% of capacity. And in order to hold Lake Powell at a level that will enable it to continue to produce electricity, there's going to be a release from Flaming Gorge Reservoir, which is on the border of Wyoming and Utah. Once that happens, it will be down to 59% of its capacity. So we're not only using up the bank accounts that Lake Powell and Lake Mead represent, we're actually raiding the kids' college fund in order to maintain this system. And no water will be used from Blue Mesa Reservoir here in Colorado or Navajo because both of those reservoirs are already too low. And this is devastating for the operators that operate marinas on all these reservoirs. I think 5 of them are going to be closed at Flaming Gorge, and currently they're talking about moving Bullfrog Marina. It's actually being done right now. Bullfrog Marina at Lake Powell is being moved right now at a cost of $73.5 million, which is just mind-blowing to me that they're moving something and it's going to be moved basically temporarily.
Because it'll have to move.
So just wanted to point out after this extremely dry, warm winter we've had that we are getting a really serious glimpse at our future, and it's a drier one.
Thank you, John. We're going to be talking about water during our consent calendar today and the potential of moving into a stage 3 water restrictions measure. I had thought a little in terms of mayor's. The mic on your left. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Grassroots. I'm fortunate. I just came back from a vacation and went down to a very, very arid area in Cabo, Mexico, the larger county area, and looked at the amount of real water resource people were being very, very cautious about in the desert environment. And I know that that I have to change my habits in terms of how I wash the dishes. I have to stop hand washing few small dishes, wait till the dishwasher's through and use it. I know I need to take shorter showers. I know I need to be able to change with the times here because we all need to contribute. And it's something that across the Front Range, across all of the West Slope and all of our neighboring states, this issue is leading into the potential of the worst wildfire season we've ever seen. And we all need to be especially cautious about that. No chains dragging off your trailer when you're trailering a scooter around or anything. No cigarette butts out the window. That your grill, should you be able to grill, however long you can grill before wildfire restrictions kick in, make sure they're out before they're put in the trash cans. And we all need to think about not planting as much perhaps because it may be something they're just scorched and gone. So those are my only comments for today as we're really approaching changing times. And being away for a little while does give you the perspective of seeing what is becoming an increasingly crowded, congested, and climate change world that stresses all the natural resources we've perhaps taken for granted as individuals in the past. No one else has any public comment. We would then go on to board meeting reports, and then we will come to the, excuse me, no, I've got it right here. The agenda amendments, are there any amendments to the tonight's agenda? No. And then the city manager's comments today.
I have 4 announcements for folks. The first one is that we have an electronic waste event coming up this Saturday from 8 to noon at the Maralt Housing parking lot. You can drop off your computers, televisions, old phones, things of that nature that you don't want anymore. We do not take large appliances. We do not take batteries. We do not take things that have hazardous chemicals in those, but we are happy to take those other items and dispose of them properly. For the business community, on June 1st, we're going to be moving to a new platform called LocalGov. They're going to provide our services for new business licenses, STR permitting, and tax filing for the taxes that we do collect locally versus the sales tax and other things going directly to the state. All of our existing customers will get an email on May 14th for this on how to activate their account and how to navigate it, although it will come preloaded with all of your information, so all your history and everything else. You're not reapplying for a license. It's just to set you up on the new platform. And if you need more information, you can certainly call the city to get support and/or visit aspen.gov/STRs for details. This year, we had our inaugural cohort for youth ambassadors in our City's Commit to Tomorrow program. We are going to showcase their projects on May 13th. This is a new city commitment to help fund students' climate action and sustainability projects. We're very excited to kind of celebrate this program. There were 3 awards for this year. One was a solar-powered Chromebook charger at the Aspen High School. Another one was a middle school garden and composting initiative, and the third was a student-led e-bike safety campaign and awareness project.
That's a good one.
That's right in line with what we talked about yesterday. And finally, we have a celebration for our Cultural Vibrancy Fellowship Program. We've run this program for a few years now, and we have a number of stellar youth and adults that participated in this program that we want to celebrate at the Wheeler on Thursday, the 14th, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And if you're interested in attending, you do need to reserve your tickets through the Wheeler Opera House website, but they are free.
Okay. Thank you very much on that. And let me ask one question. On the local gov new platform, I'm sure you're sharing that information with the Chamber of Commerce. They can get it out to their members as well.
We'll do that. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Now we would go to board reports. Any board happenings in the last 2 weeks?
Nothing in the last 2 weeks.
No. Any board?
I attended an all-day RWAPA, I forget what it was called, but there were, I'll just go into it.
Rudai Water and Power Authority.
Rudai Water and Power Authority meeting. There were, I think, 5 seminars. The first one was Airborne Snow Observatories. That's the planes that fly over our snowpack to measure using LIDAR to measure snow depth and predict the amount of runoff that we're going to see this year. He gave a presentation. It was not good, as you can imagine. Rudai is only supposed to fill to 65% this year. Forgot to leave that out of my previous comments. We talked about fire preparedness and some modeling that's going on by a gentleman from Vanderbilt University. He did some modeling he's working on the whole county right now, but they did some initial modeling last summer that estimated that if there was a fire started in the Prince Creek drainage near Carbondale and somebody dragged some chains on the ground or left a fire burning or threw a cigarette out, a fire could go from Prince Creek outside of Carbondale to Snowmass Village in 12 hours. So pretty dramatic news there. There was a fire break implemented off of Sopris Creek Road, which should help mitigate a giant fire of that size coming from that direction. But clearly we have a lot to do with fire mitigation. And the wildfire ready study is supposed to be finished by the end of the summer. So I could enthrall you all with a bunch more bad news, but I think everybody here is pretty aware of it.
Great. Yeah, thank you, John. We will now move on to our consent calendar. The first item, and I think we'll take these one at a time. I think there's a number you had questions on, Bill, or wanted to hear a little more detail on. So we're not going to pass them as a single motion. We'll probably take them one at a time. So first items would be Resolution 059 and 069, series of 2026, the electric vehicle charging station facilities installation. This is to continue the existing program with installation of new chargers at the Red Brick, the Arc, and one other location. And so what were your concerns on that, Bill?
Yes, thank you so much. On this one, I just wanted to check in with everyone I wanted to check in with everyone on whether we think that this is necessary and a continued good idea. I've never heard a single person share with me that they think we are short on electric vehicle infrastructure charging. I don't think, it isn't intended, these specific ones aren't intended to help with the city-owned fleet. This is more an amenity to the public. And I think we have a lot of that already. And again, I don't hear people asking for this. it also sort of contradicts our interest in mode shifting people to buses and bikes and other types of non-single occupant or low occupant vehicles. It feels a lot like a subsidy to me, and not really something that's needed to improve our existing infrastructure or solve a problem. I get that it aligns with, green goals, but I think I'd rather personally use the money elsewhere. So I wanted to check in with everyone on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that. It's important. If it's okay, I'll speak first. I would like to see us move forward with this. I think that given the fuel crisis that we're beginning to see and may never quite go back to normal, we'll probably see a renewed interest in electric vehicles going forward. And I think that the issues, honestly, having just come from an area where the air pollution with the exhaust fumes from fossil fuel burning vehicles was just intense at times, so intense that you could have a nice little patio area and you couldn't sit on it because you couldn't breathe. I think that I'm seeing more and more, even in the most remote and rural communities, installing electric vehicle charging stations. And part of that is to attract the guest so that they don't have the range anxiety about, well, will I be able to charge when I get there? Will I get back home? And while I do not necessarily like it, I think that when the airport is closed, we're going to depend more on vehicles than perhaps we have in the past for summer traffic. So I'm interested in moving this forward. If anyone else would like to see us pull it, and give your reasons, that now would be the time, or if we're supporting this going forward, I would accept a motion to move it forward.
I have a couple comments.
Okay.
I think Rachel touched on it, but the cost of gas right now is the cost of gas now, as Rachel just mentioned, is through the roof. I saw an article earlier today talking about electric vehicles and the fact that this particular user had spent had a $600 savings between electric costs and gas last year, and he's estimating that's going to double to $1,600 worth of savings this year. I don't know if I got those numbers right, but at any rate, geez, with what we've seen here this winter and what our planet's undergoing, the move to electrification is imperative right now. And that's why I support this moving forward. We need to get more people out of gas-powered vehicles and more people into electric vehicles.
Would you like to make a motion so we can discuss it further?
I'd be happy to, unless anybody else has a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Christine, if you want to do it now or after a motion.
My only comment is that the rest of the world is moving toward electric. Europe and Asia and a lot of the countries are making this move. And just because we have an administration right now that is rolling some of those efforts back, I think this is the future. And it's our obligation to be a part of that movement.
Thank you.
If I could add just one further thought, is I don't disagree with any of those notions. I don't see anywhere that this is needed, and I don't understand why this is our role to subsidize or create this infrastructure. I think we've created sufficient infrastructure to make it workable, which was like the original need, right? It's like if you didn't have the charging stations, then no one could have a car. But now there's lots of electric vehicles. Unless you guys are hearing differently, I don't hear a need for more of this. I don't think that this encourages more people to buy or change to electric vehicles. And I also think that there's a private enterprise side to this that we shouldn't interfere with. Like, at some point, should the traditional gas station change to partially or entirely to an electric gas station? Maybe, but like, why should we continue building out the infrastructure for this? And if we do, I think it should be mandated that the pricing is built to recover all of the costs of doing so. I just don't, it doesn't feel like a responsible and respectful use of the funds to subsidize people's transportation.
I think there's a lot of different analogies to be made here, but it is an incentive type of issue to let people know they absolutely have an opportunity to charge their car when they need to. And sometimes there's I certainly have seen people go to a station and then pull away because it's already in use and not have an ability to find another one right away or where they need to. I think it says something about what Aspen is and where Aspen is going to continue to support this program. It's a fairly minor step forward for reasons that are more aligned with climate goals and doing our small part to prevent climate change in an area. So I am supportive of it. I understand your concerns, but sometimes the free market needs a little bit of a push and a little bit of an incentive. And, we could use the RAFTA analogy in the sense that, yeah, we want people to not be driving and using but we subsidize that other transportation for them. And now we would be subsidizing someone to be in a clean form of car instead of a dirty burning car. And it's all part of the whole because everyone's not all getting rid of their cars and all going to be on the bus all the time. But that's just my opinion. Sam?
Yeah, I'm going to say I plan on supporting this tonight, but I do think you make a good point as far as data gathering goes. If this does come up again for council, I'd like to understand the need for these stations. And it kind of reminded me of like when you fill a water bottle at the airport, it says this many water bottles saved from filling it here. I'd be curious like how much our EV charging stations are in use and how many gallons of gas saved by that. And I think that would speak volumes towards supporting something like this in the future. Having said that, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 59 and 69, Series of 2026.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. If there's any further comments, Nicole, will you call the roll?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. And let's have staff come up for this one. It is the Stage 3 Water Shortage Declaration Recommendation. I believe we had a very thorough memo on this. I appreciate that. But frankly, I think this is worth discussing to share the information with the public as much as anything else. Thank you.
You want me to go first? Or is it-
Yeah, why don't you go with your concerns first? And
Sure. I think firstly, I understand the need and the impetus for this. I understand the tangible restrictions that are being suggested, and I think they're thoughtful and I hope meaningful. But I continue to struggle with the financial penalties for higher use. And I know you've put some thought into this and you've tried to structure it on the top 40% of users, and I appreciate that, but I don't think that really changes the behavior, just having a bigger bill. And I don't think that this is accomplishing what we want. And so this is somewhat of a rhetorical question, but I think it's worth asking is, does charging more for water create more water in our system?
I can answer that question. So for the record, Aaron Laughlin, Malaconi Utilities Director. And if Cole Langford, if he wants to join, in case I start saying something a little off kilter, you can correct me. But I think the answer, Bill, is in the past, or Councilman Guth, that we have not yet seen that those highest water users fully respond to the measures, because we have a customer base that is pretty diverse, and a lot of people are rather insensitive to financial triggers. So our hope with this and the focus on just the highest of those users, the most excessive of those users, is that there might be, maybe on the margins, some sensitivity to the ratcheted up pressure to change some behavior. But also, I mean, the intent is not actually to collect revenue. It's not built into our revenue projections to have a dry year where we over-collect on the budget. I think we've seen where that has been historically what we've collected in dry years. People don't generally reduce to the amounts that we're looking for. We're hopeful that this year will be different. And so I think pairing this tool, which is industry standard, and in the conversations we have with our consultants for conservation and resiliency, they do continue to encourage us to still make use of this tool because it is something that's still in the bucket that if we do collect revenue, it goes directly back into water conservation measures. So in short, I don't know that we can right now say definitively that these temporary rate increases directly tie to reduced system usage, but we're certainly hopeful that for the most egregious water users, it will start to affect their patterns of usage. I think we're more likely to see response with the more emphasized enforcement that we're rolling out. We've been doing leading up to this meeting, but also fully dedicated to looking out further this year and using.
Can I
yeah.
interrupt a second, Aaron? Your answers are helpful in the context of my conversation, but it wasn't the answer to my question. My question was, does charging more money for water create more water? Will you have more gallons of water in the system?
No. So to answer that question,
I think it's a simple answer,
No.
right? No, right?
there is no reservoir that we're filling by people using less water.
Not using less water, charging more for water. Does that create more physical water?
Does not create more physical
Thank you.
water.
That's why I said it's a rhetorical question,
Yeah.
but I wanted to say it out loud.
Thank you. I didn't understand the question. I'm glad you asked it again.
Thank you for answering it. And there are so many people that I think fall into these higher tiers that aren't processing their own bills for their house. And the people that are processing the bills for their house or their commercial property or whatever aren't going to make the link to behavior change at the property level. That's why, ultimately, why I'm saying that I don't think that this is effective and it's just punitive and not where we should be putting our efforts. I think we should be putting our efforts into the enforcement stuff and into the regulations. That's the responsible thing to do. And this just doesn't feel like the right tool or an effective tool for me in Aspen. I'd much rather you have a higher fine for people who aren't following the current rules and put more effort and resources into the fines, because I do think the message is going to get to the property owners directly with a meaningful, scary fine after the first warning or whatever your sort of tiers are. I don't think a higher bill is going to do it, and that doesn't feel fair and right to me, because our goal is behavior change and conserving water, not collecting more revenue. So I like everything about this except the increased fees. And I think that there are some small number of people that can't avoid the level of water usage that they're using. They're really just, I don't know if that's applicable to a hotel where people are taking showers and you really can't change the behavior of your guests that much. But that feels unnecessarily punitive and doesn't really change the behavior in the way that I would like to see it changed.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments on that bill. I'll offer a counterpoint myself. I agree with you. I think the fines should be higher, and we've received at least one email that said particularly the business fine should be higher than a residential fine, that businesses that are a repeat offender should be able to stomach more of that than not. But in the broader context, I was actually on council decades ago when we first went into a tiered rate system based on water use levels, 1, 2, 3, and then that wasn't enough. We had to add a number 4 because people in the 3 were a little too mixed. But those revenues went to pay for staffers to go through the links to find who's LLC, who's the attorney, who's the accountant paying the bill. How do we reach the owner to let them know why these issues persist, or the property manager or something like that? So it goes towards being able to have the staff to enforce the regulations and to make sure they're being obeyed and to make sure that we can help people learn how to use less water in their own household use. But I think that the price incentive is important, because this is going to be an ongoing thing in the future. I do not see the climate improving steadily. I moved here in 1978, and in my 45 years of living here, this is the worst snow and water that I've ever seen. And I got really involved in the water issues when I became a county commissioner. And what I came to learn, you go to a lot of towns, they don't offer you water at the table, because they just don't. That's a number one water conservation thing. You know, buy a Coke, please, buy something in a bottle, but we're not going to pour you water unless you request it and maybe even pay for it. There are other communities that are suffering, and the most recent report from Becky Mitchell, the negotiator on the the whole upper valley, upper basin, lower basin, Colorado River issue, has said they're already starting to turn communities off. And Aspen's water rights are not that old as a city. And the law of the river is first in line, first in time, and they're starting to go up the ladder. So the very first turnoff that affects our valley is the cameo call. And when that happens, suddenly all the agriculturalists in Old Snowmass can't run their ditches anymore, and other people can't. And if they get up to a certain point, they will start reducing our water rights. And we have some issues we have to deal with. And I would not take a single tool out of the box to deal with the drought we have going on. I will pray for rain, and I will cross my fingers and hope that summer turns around with a strong monsoon season early. But what we're looking at right now, I need to make sure there's enough water in our system that we can fight a wildfire and still have domestic water at the same time, should we have that sort of catastrophe. And to the extent that some people might not be cost sensitive and it might not change their behavior, well, I'm sorry about that. They can pay the cost, and that cost can help us. It's a little like the REMP program, the Renewable Energy Mitigation. When someone really wanted those components at that house that exceeded their energy budget, they paid a fee, and it took the energy consumption down somewhere else. And I think that we can use these resources to be able to do that. So that's why I appreciate the sense that for some people, it takes more of a human touch than the financial touch, but we have to have time for staff to be able to make that human touch. Otherwise, we're subsidizing their overuse with our staff time, and I do not want to do that. Other comments on the Stage 3 water restriction item? John Doyle.
Yeah, again, going back to my board report and that, I also attended a River District meeting next door at the library last week, and it was pretty devastating. I mean, the charts they showed, we're in unprecedented territory. This is beyond anything that was even predicted. And there's no immediate solution for this in the future. So I think what we're looking at is trying to discourage egregious water use. And I think we have a lot of people here who these places that they own here are their second homes, and they're not aware of how dry it is right here because they're visiting from somewhere else. So I think what's being proposed here is one of the only tools we have available to discourage egregious water use. If there's a better idea out there, I think we'd probably implement it.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame we don't start our community on so many matters from a blank slate. And we don't. Everyone's got Kentucky bluegrass. It's not native to this area. We're trying to grow things here for an aesthetic that was learned on the East Coast or other very water-rich areas. And what we're kind of saying is we cannot continue to support that at the level we have in the past. And I think that financial incentive might allow some people to think a lot more carefully about the landscaping they put in their new home, or how they even do their fire mitigation in a way that is less water dependent. The one thing that it's always confusing to people when they talk about the rolling average. What is the rolling average on the snowpack or the rolling average in the rivers? It's important to know the rolling average changes. So the rolling average 20 years ago is not the same as the rolling average today. The other higher snow years drop off, and the lower, less water years roll on. And so we're dealing with lower and lower and lower rolling averages every year. And so when they say, well, it's 60% of average, well, that's not the average of 1980, and that's not the average of 2000. It's the average of a diminishing supply. And we need to take all action that we can to make sure we have fire safety water, that we have water for our community members, and we have water for our guests. And in that sense, we have to be punitive to those who overuse. And so I'm sorry, financial seems like the only punishment. but no one's getting out there and spanking anybody, so that's all we got. Is there a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, will you call the roll, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. Resolution number 64, series of 2026, the intergovernmental agreement for regional greenhouse gas inventory. Is there further comments on this item?
Yes. I don't understand the reason for it. We've done this a few years ago. I don't know how this changes meaningfully in a couple of years. I don't know why we would pay for the overwhelming majority of the project. If this is a regional effort, shouldn't this be at the very least equal amongst all parties? I don't know how, like, I don't know what this additional information does to change the actions one would take. Seems.
If we have staff here who would like to come up and address this issue, that would be fine.
Evening, Council. Tessa Schreiner, Environmental Health and Sustainability Manager.
Claire McLaughlin, Sustainability Manager. To answer your question, the reason we need this data now is because since the last inventory, which was completed in 2024 using 2023 data, there's been quite a few environmental programs and policies that Council has approved. And so what we want to do is check and evaluate the effect of those programs and policies on our greenhouse gas emissions. And so this would give us updated data to do so and to evaluate not only what programs we're offering, but also program delivery and how effective that is to the community.
They're not collecting actual air samples and measuring greenhouse gases here, right? That's not part of this. This is all theoretical.
It's not exactly theoretical. The data sets that are used in an inventory are real data. It's traffic data, how many cars are, passing through. It's actual emissions from utility bills or from overall utility data from our different utility providers. So it's real on the ground data that you would expect to see a change over time if programs or different factors in the community are changing.
So the things that you've changed, we should know that impact already. We don't need to remeasure that impact, right? Like if you said we've done all these programs.
Right, so this would be trying to measure the impact of those programs from a greenhouse gas perspective, which we don't have those data. We do have the data on perhaps how many heat pumps were distributed, things like that where you could estimate, but this would be giving a holistic and real evaluation of the impact on greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay, and you said we need this data. How is this going to change outcomes?
This could change outcomes because it would help us understand, are the programs we're delivering now the most efficient and effective to reach Council's goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and 2050 respectively?
Okay, thank you. And why should the city of Aspen pay the overwhelming majority of this?
That's a great question. So typically the way this has been done is in a pretty long, extensive regional process. And it was our idea this year to get newer data because we've had more newer programming that made us want this new data that our regional partners hadn't passed yet. So it's our idea. That's why we offered to take on more of the cost. And also we wanted to pilot a new version, which would be streamlined, less staff time, more efficient. And so with this process, it was our idea, we asked Pitkin County if they wanted to partner. So we could have done it on our own, which we would have paid the full amount, but Pitkin County agreed to join us to pay for a portion.
Nice. Thanks for all your answers. Appreciate it.
I don't know if there's further discussion, or do we want to just get a motion on the table for discussion? John?
I just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to moving this forward and getting this information, especially information on heat pumps. I think that's going to be very informative.
Thank you. Any other comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution. I'm sorry, what number is it?
64.
64, thanks.
I'll second. For me, part of this is working regionally. I think that that's really important, that we are not just an isolated community doing what we can for climate change, but by involving them in the study and the acknowledgement of what their emissions are, it starts to become a much more unified effort, and they can see value themselves in some of the programs that we're inventing. And frankly, Aspen has always led the way in the Valley on any number of initiatives and things like this. And not just even in the Valley. Things like transferable developer rights were picked up in Routt County and Steamboat Springs from our Pickens County commissioners. And these are just important elements. This is not an exorbitant cost. The amount that Aspen is being asked to pay is $15,565. And to see the other partners coming in, I think means something. You literally got RAFTA started with Glenwood Springs participating by running the buses down there for free for a period of time until they saw that it was valuable to them too, and they started contributing. So I am happy to move this forward. It's been made and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll? Or if anybody had a final comment, but.
Just, I think smartly you're doing it the year before the airport closes, and you'll have accurate information that way too.
Thank you. Anything? No. Okay, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richard?
Yes, thank you. The next is resolution number 65, series of 2026, the Smuggler Bridge Staff Report. Were there questions on this one?
Yeah, maybe I can be less contrarian on one for once, but we'll see. I would like to make sure that on this, we are not simply limiting ourselves to replacing this bridge with like kind. And I'd like to make sure that we have the opportunity with this design work to think differently and think bigger. And maybe there's a shift in the alignment of the road. Maybe the bridge is higher. Maybe the bridge is curved. Maybe, I don't want to just say, design the same bridge that's there today that is newer and stronger and whatever. I want, from my perspective, I want to look to see if we can enhance the evacuation routes, make that road less dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my hope in this effort. And assuming that that is encapsulated in this scope, I'm super supportive of it.
Thank you, Council. Jack Dannyberg, Senior Project Manager. I appreciate the comments. We have prioritized timing of this replacement through the process thus far. We chose replacement because of the relative costs and ultimately the improved timing of replacement. But we are, in this memo, we did include some improvements to the existing structure, such as pedestrian safety, aesthetics, some hydraulic flow conditions through the channel. We're going to be improving some of the approach angles to an extent. But, you know, really one of the main priorities here is making sure that this community resource is available and down the least amount of time possible through its replacement. I think that this project is going to have a big impact on our community, and so making sure that we can deliver this at a pace that limits that impact is important to us. This design process will take about 9 months and be delivered towards the end of this year. And through that process, we will be evaluating different ways to improve the condition.
Got it. I'm in agreement with everything you said, and certainly all of your goals. I'm just not sure this goes far enough for me, and I think we've got one chance before we spend the money on both the design and the construction to think at least, or to contemplate doing more and doing it better. And I think what I'm talking about adds time to your design process, and I don't know if it adds time to anything else. So unless this bridge is in like critical condition and needs to be replaced, you know, yesterday, then I would hope that we have the time to think a little bit bigger and broader on doing something that could really improve the existing condition rather than marginally improve the existing condition.
Thank you. I had a comment as well, perhaps similar along those lines. In the design, I'm not suggesting it should be included in the final construction, but I'd like to make sure that if a future council was going to move towards a congestion pricing program, we would, if this would be the location for it, that we would have the type of placement or a wiring as necessary when the lighting comes in, things like that, so that it could be prepared if that is something that we end up needing to use as a traffic control measure in the future.
Okay.
Any other council questions or comments on this?
Was I clear on sort of what
I think
want to be considered? All I want is consideration of it.
I'm kind of happy to say, let's consider things, but without asking them to come back and say, can you build a new entrance to the Public Works facility to match with a new road? And can you look at redoing Power Plant Road downhill and the grades and changing that? I don't know how much they can do in that little area where the bridge is.
Well,
and within our
everything you
easement.
said is exactly what I'm asking for.
Okay, well then we are asking for a much larger project.
I don't know that it's much larger.
Well, to take a road and improve it, Power Plant Road, all the way down that hill is what I just said. Is that what you're saying you want to see in this project?
Well, you don't necessarily need to eliminate that road, but if we're doing a bridge anyways, could the bridge go higher and go over the facility rather than do this crazy down and up thing?
So you have more of a straight Castle Creek Gorge bridge?
Perhaps.
Okay.
And again, I don't know what that costs. I don't know what other impacts are there, but I'd like to do at least a very schematic design exercise to see, is this worth pursuing further before we commit to a new bridge in that location anyways. That's my hope.
It sounds like you're talking about trying to really design a second exit to town that is deliberately designed as an exit to town to even out that road, as opposed to this is the kind of the back road down to Public Works in the river.
That's not my
I think-
primary interest.
Well, I
but-
think we'd be talking to Cemetery Lane and all these guys quite a bit if we're talking about a bridge that spanned the gorge. There was a proposed bridge, I think, in the construction documents that Jacobs Engineering had brought forward to say, this is how we can build the entrance more easily, either a temporary bridge on the Meralt or a temporary bridge off of Smuggler over to Cemetery Lane. And I thought there were some pretty high cost estimates associated with that type of design. Do you recall?
So Councilmember Guth, I think I generally understand what you're after. I would state that I think the current structure is at a state that we need to act expeditiously to replace it. But I do think we can do kind of a feasibility study with some of the concepts that you've discussed. What staff has assessed thus far is that there's a lot of fixed points in that gorge that would be difficult to design around. However, this kind of flyover concept hasn't really been studied in great depth, and so we could probably do a feasibility study independent of this project. But I would say that this project needs to progress on a more punctuated time frame to meet the community's needs.
Okay, and to be clear, this is not binary to me. I'm not saying it's got to be an equivalent bridge to what is right next to it. But maybe it makes a lot of sense to elevate it by an additional 5 feet or 10 feet, and that somehow significantly improves the approach angles. I have no idea. I'm no expert on this.
Those are the kind of studies that we have undertaken thus far, and really what we're finding is there's a number of fixed points with the historic structures, with the foundation of the adjacent Castle Creek Bridge, with the floodplain and private property, that kind of lighter touch infrastructure enhancement is not really possible, but something larger may be, and we haven't assessed that.
Great. So how would you propose proceeding to accomplish that feasibility study?
I would recommend to council that you guys consider approving the contract tonight, allowing us to repair the existing infrastructure to maintain that secondary or tertiary egress from town. And then if council wishes, we can look at a feasibility study of other alignments for a future structure.
Yeah, I can agree to that, but I don't want to embark on a feasibility study until I understand the cost of the feasibility study. I watched $1.3 million go up in smoke looking at a 3-lane bridge. And there was the comment that we could build this far more quickly if we had an alternate temporary bridge. And that was pretty roundly rejected by the neighbors in those 2 neighborhoods. And so I think without looking at how you're going to reconfigure the connection to Cemetery Lane, out to Highway 82, and what it does coming through the West End, that would start to be neighborhood group meetings and discussions of designs. This could be a $500,000 million design feasibility study. And so maybe if we have stuff through some of the old documentation or for what Jacob's already did, happy to take a look at it. But otherwise, I'm not starting a second entrance project here.
And I think we can do this perhaps even at a staff level. I think there's some really obvious constraints that may be workable and may not be workable, but we could bring that back to council as well.
Okay. Other council members' comments or thoughts on that, or Sam?
So I'll make a quick comment as far as the sensitivity of power plant road being under our current Castle Creek Bridge and how that will need work on it at some point, regardless of our entrance to Aspen solution. So I'm not sure if that really has to do with the bridge across Castle Creek, but just consideration of that we don't want a bridge falling down on our only other egress route. And while you're looking down there, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
The obvious.
Yep.
So.
And I think that's part of the haste that staff is trying to convey, is that we'd like to get this bridge resolved before other actions with the Castle Creek Bridge may or may not occur.
Understood.
Thank you. Any others, or, okay, is there a motion on?
And again, I'm not suggesting that this is binary, right? I just like, if we're going to be spending this kind of money on fixing something, like, is there something small that we might be able to do that can enhance the existing conditions somewhat or meaningfully or not at all? I don't know. That's the question that I'm asking, so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 65, Series of 2026.
All right.
So, yeah.
It has been made and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you. Now we have a more exciting item, the option to ground lease the Lumberyard Phase B funding. It was a very thorough memo. I appreciate that. But if we have any questions at all, let's get them out on the table.
I would just also like to note for council, Kimball is our
Online.
is our Gorman contact. She is here with Gorman to answer any questions you may have that Rob, I'm sure Rob can answer all of them.
Okay.
But Kimball might have some more information.
Thank you for that. And Kimball, thank you for zooming in and hearing all our other exciting issues. It's my understanding from reading this and talking with staff that this does not add or take away from the plan, essentially, for the land lease to have been given to Gorman over time in the phasing of this project to complete it. It's not giving up something different than we had before.
That's correct. It's more of a formality or administrative process that they need to show the housing authority that they have the ability to enter into this lease in order for them to apply for the tax credits. So really, nothing changes. They still have to meet certain conditions for financing and the development in order for this to move forward. And if for some reason the tax credits aren't awarded and we don't want to move forward, it's, the option expires.
Null and void.
Nothing changes, so.
Yep. Additional questions, John?
No questions to comment.
Okay. Please, go ahead.
I'm just happy as I can be every time I drive by the Lumberyard and see the activity that's going on out there, and I'm really pleased to move this forward tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on this? Or okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 66, Series of 2026.
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yep.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you. And finally, we have resolution number 67, series of 2026, contract for concrete repair to the bridge approach. This is, again, a very thorough memo, and it is within the existing budget of the Parks and Open Space program. Are there any council questions on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 67, Series of 2026, and the draft minutes of April 28th, 2026.
Second.
Sneaky. Very good, thank you. It's been made and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you very much. We will now have no notice of call-ups. We have no first reading of ordinances. We do have a public hearing. This is Resolution 51, Series of 2025, Policy Resolution for Land Use Code Amendments related to electrification. And I just want to be very clear, this is not the adoption of a policy. It is the adoption of clarity in direction for staff to produce some codes that both our planning and zoning and council would later be reviewing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing. Let's present the information for any members of the public who would like to comment.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Haley Hart, Long Range Planner.
And I'm Sophie Varga, Zoning Administrator.
This
Thank you.
Policy Resolution Number 51, Series of 2026, which is for the purpose of electrification. And pursuant to Code Section 26310, a policy resolution is the first step required in any land use code amendment. So that's specific to Title 26. That is what Policy Resolution Number 51 is.
Okay.
And the anticipated changes that would come out of this policy resolution would solely affect Title 26 and its regulation of dimensional standards and zoning for projects that are pursuing electrification. These are the identified sections within Title 26 that govern issues such as height and setbacks, but staff anticipates a more holistic approach to code updates for electrification. And just as a little bit of background, this policy resolution began with City Council's direction in 2023 to form an electrification task force. Since then, members of the planning and zoning teams within the electrification task force have partnered with the working group to contemplate comprehensive updates to the code, which resulted in the September 29th work session. Council provided staff with recommendations on these 6 policy questions. And although the city is on a path currently towards comprehensive updates around electrification, we do also have current customers who are pursuing that voluntarily and who are currently experiencing obstacles in the review path. And this has led staff, at least within planning and zoning and sort of around Title 26 updates, to contemplate those obstacles and the intersection with specific code sections in Title 26. And our team has identified issues such as height, setback allowances, site planning, and dimensional requirements to be considered for amendments. And so at this time, which is not typical of policy resolutions, but we do have 2 additional high-level policy questions for council to contemplate as we move into a first reading and red lines. So the first question is if council would like staff to draft policy that provides less flexibility on dimensional requirements for new construction when pursuing electrification. The second question is if council would like to consider floor area as staff drafts code options. And we've sort of contemplated this as we can sort of discuss this now or at a future work session, which staff will be coming to council with in the coming months. But we really felt that answering these 2 questions today would help sort of set the stage for that work session and be able to sort of direct staff on red lines and sort of further policy questions at that work session. So it's up to council if you would like to discuss these today or if you would rather us bring these to our work session.
Yeah, let me try to move us forward. I think that on the number 2, it would be valuable to kind of say, well, it could be this or this. You know, you could mandate, and this is the value and reason of mandating that 50 square feet of floor area or not. And so kind of bring us the understanding. Being at the county level before and going through some code changes that were similar, one of the real issues was that mechanical things were being installed in places that were almost impossible to get to repair in some of these homes, down below and through a crawl space and up and over. And, you know, for fire and safety and other reasons, they wanted to make it a lot more reasonable to get in and get out and to fix or upgrade as needed to be able to change equipment out as things happen. So I kind of think we could possibly, you could show us the pros and cons of that and what that might mean for different houses on different lot sizes. So that would be something we don't have to discuss too thoroughly. And then on the first question, I think part of our response would be to really understand more of the definition of flexibility. I would think that what you're talking about is if a home is electrifying, that's an existing home, and there are equipment or transformers that are now going to butt a foot or two into the right-of-way, will we give that flexibility? And I think that is very different from new construction where, you know, you can put it on your site by designing it that way and not interfere with the right-of-way. And so there may be other areas where you're talking about flexibility on height and things like this. And I can only speak for myself, but for me, if you're designing a new home, you design to the codes that are in place at that time or for what your potential homeowner is going to want. And many of our homeowners are conscious of climate change, energy use, and electrification, and will want these things. So I just, if you have any other definitions of where and what areas you'd want to know about flexibility, that would potentially be different between the two. But if you're allowing an older home to do it, and that's the only way they can do it with the home structure they have, to me, that doesn't create a precedent to say, well, a new construction can crowd through the alley as well, or whatever. So that's just
exactly how we've contemplated this question of just generalization. I don't think that we have specific dimensional standards in mind right now. It's more of just for site constraints for existing properties. Yeah. Do we want to be able to have more flexibility when those sites are pursuing the electrification upgrades?
Okay, so council members, we can go down the line and see what your thoughts are on, I think we got number 2 answered, so we're really just needing to go with number 2.
I have a question. You mentioned applications going through voluntarily that are running into obstacles. Can you give a real life example of what people are running into in this process already?
Do you want to answer that?
I think our current code doesn't differentiate between existing and new development. So we kind of have a one size fits all, but it obviously doesn't. So folks run into issues where they don't have available space on a site that meets the code requirements. Yeah.
It's not easy.
And that could be the side yard setbacks, could be the rear setback, it could be the alleyway, it could be other issues.
So yeah, so a specific example is on the ground, we require that equipment is not between a street and a structure. But if you're on a corner lot and you're pretty built out, you might not have very much space that meets that requirement.
Got it, thank you.
And I was just going to add, I mean, we've built some flexibility in the code to allow a case-by-case evaluation of that with some sort of blessing of those kind of circumstances, but it requires a lot of process. It requires us to, go through multiple iterations of design sometimes. We're running into this with our neighbors next door at Picken County Library, who are putting in a new fleet of heat pumps up on that roof, and it's tall equipment. And it's going to happen, but it's taken multiple rounds of back and forth between staff, as our staff rightfully has tried to fit that new equipment into our current code and trying to find some compromise. And so we just want to, when we land on whatever these numbers are, of making sure that we're giving clarity and we're giving an acknowledgement that the equipment that's now part of this dynamic is much bigger and different than I think we had previously contemplated the mechanical.
Bill? Were you finished, Christine?
No, I think it makes sense to treat previous development different from new construction.
Yeah.
And agree with what Rachel
It's
suggested.
a blank slate. You can make it right. Bill, and then we'll come back around. Anybody else?
Thanks. I think I agree. I think we have no choice but to treat them differently. But I really want to think through this well, and I think this applies in a broader sense than the electrification initiatives or whatever the right term is. This isn't just limited to that. If you want to add air conditioning, replace air conditioning today, even if it was already electric or what, you're dealing with these challenges. There's new federal law that has driven all this equipment to be totally redesigned, and it's bigger. And we're not going to, it seems unreasonable to me, and I think hopefully everybody, to make someone fully alter their building or acquire adjacent land or whatever to try to meet dimensional requirements. So I think we do need to build in flexibility, and we do need to treat them differently. I think we also need to be thinking about things like transformer requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Although I wasn't supportive of this super broad electrification initiative, I am supportive of smart electrification efforts. And one of the realities of doing all of this is that transformer infrastructure has to be upsized and added and moved and et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of our existing built environment cannot accommodate your current transformer rules, period. Right? We see it. We've already seen that a number of times on people trying to do basic small scale electrification work, and what is being talked about here is massive scale electrification work. So I think that needs
There's a subgroup that's just dedicated to transformers. Yeah.
Foreshadowing the relatively near term for council, there's been, since that work session that Haley identified, across agencies in the city, utilities, engineering, ComDev, there's been a ton of work, I think, to try to come up with some really practical responses to this stuff. And so we hope in a series of work sessions across the summer and into the early fall, you'll be hearing more about this topic more holistically.
Great, thanks. And then on number 2, I'd like a little more information and exemplification on this. Like, is this just a rule because Picken County did this, or is there problems we're trying to address? In my experience, every new development I've seen has a amply sized mechanical room that's driven by clearance requirements and things like that. And I don't see mechanical equipment being shoved into inconvenient locations. And I think most of our code sort of already addresses the clearances you need to have to service and maintain and replace equipment. So what's driving this question? What's driving this rule? Is it a rule just for rule's sake, or is it really trying to get at a problem?
Sophie, do you?
And is that something to be answered now, or is that answered in the policy that comes forward to us?
I think broadly, both of these questions are related to each other to some degree, and it's just about what happens, I think, both on new and existing development, where we've got floor area that per square foot is so incredibly valuable that I do think in an effort to sometimes game the most usable floor area, you've got mechanical equipment that's either being pushed out to setbacks, being pushed up to roofs, having impacts on neighbors, or being put into spaces that maybe aren't the most accessible, that aren't counted within floor area calculations. And so I don't think it's necessarily to be in full alignment with Picken County. I think there's some reasons why they did it as well, but just acknowledging that this equipment is bigger, that it's creating more space needs on a given project. I think this also applies both to commercial and to residential. The question does. And so it's just, because floor area is what it is in this town, I think it's an important question of whether or not that's a bright line we stay away from or not, because I do think that it potentially has some impact on total development right or total usable development right for livable space on a property.
Okay, I think, again, I'd like some sort of more specifics, because much of the equipment that we're talking about making room for and complying with dimensional requirements is exterior equipment, not interior equipment. And yet you're talking about a rule that really, for the most part, only applies to the interior of structures. Yeah. I know there's exceptions to that, of course, but so I'm not really sure how those two things jive. I don't think the interior equipment is really that different in size from what we've dealt with historically. So again, I'm happy to explore this with you if you think that there's a real problem that we're trying to solve, and you can give some examples of how this would be beneficial, but I don't have that information yet.
When we come with some red lines, we'll bring some case studies to kind of show what this may or may not mean on a given project.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good. And the one thing, whether it's the Transformer Subcommittee or through utilities or whatever, I'd like to see the policy about how we can get shared costs on transformer upgrades, which we discussed in the past as well. I think that'd be a very important part of this coming forward. Other comments or questions? I'm going to go to the public hearing after your comment, John. So,
I just wanted to say in answering question 1 and 2, yes and yes.
okay.
That's all.
Okay. I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah, I think I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah.
We're heading in the right direction.
We're just going to look at policies, and they may or may not get passed. They would be modified. They may point out other things we need to address.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is anyone here to speak to this matter or online? I'm not seeing anyone. I will close the public hearing and bring it back for a motion
So moved.
to pass Resolution 51.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Can I ask, what are we passing?
It's the public hearing on the policy resolution code amendments. It's for them to begin to work on the issues we just discussed.
Yeah, so policy resolutions are sort of the first step in opening code. So it's just part of Title 26. It's within section, I think, 304. It just states that we have to bring a policy resolution before we can bring you a
And we haven't
first
done that yet on
reading.
this specific matter. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the hard work. We now will go to our board appointments memo. I was not here for the interviews. I do know many of the individuals who are here. Let me ask council, there only seem to be 2 where there is competition across, as opposed to just filling the roles that are there. Let me see if anyone would be willing to make a motion to approve the animal shelter appointment of Diane Woolish, the Board of Adjustment appointment of Victoria Thomas, the local licensing authority of Hunter Gavin, and the planning and zoning appointments of Tom Gorman and Marianne Pitt.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you.
Can I make a suggestion or a request?
Yes, please, Bill.
On Wheeler Board, in light of our term limit conversations last night, can I suggest that we, if necessary, I don't know when the terms of the two people that are reapplying expire, but
August.
both of them are August, thank you. So depending on what Kate and Nicole's thoughts are on when we might be able to have a resolution ready for consideration, if that could occur prior to August, I'd request / suggest we take no action on the Wheeler Board appointments at this time. If they don't think that can happen before August, I'd suggest we do a short-term extension on those two incumbents.
What is the intent? Is that so that they would no longer qualify to be able to reapply?
I don't have a specific intent. I'm just saying that in light of the work that we're doing, I don't know if either of them have served 3 terms, or I don't know how many terms either of them has served. I'm just saying that given that this is something that we recently discussed and there seemed to be broad support for, I think it's worth getting that done before we consider the
Okay. Well,
reappointment.
how,
Just for the record, both of these individuals, the individuals that are reapplying, their terms go through August of 2026, just so you're aware.
August 2026.
So I do think we could have an ordinance before you. Again, keep in mind it's first and second reading, but generally after adoption at second reading, legally there's an argument that individuals appointed are subject to it because it's public knowledge that it's going to be in effect. That being said, I do think we could get something before you before August 2026. Again, it wouldn't necessarily, you always can choose who you want to appoint. I just want to be clear to the public about that. This ordinance will not change that. However, if the ordinance is in effect prior to the reappointment, it will allow you to then apply the term limits set forth in the ordinance
to their,
in effect when
to
you
their new
appoint.
term.
Correct. So if they served then 3 more years, I think you would then say that following term, they would be limited pursuant to the ordinance and have to step off for a certain number of years pursuant to the direction we were given last night, just to be clear. But you always have the choice, and to the extent you wish more information on how long they've been on there, to sort of recognize the spirit of the intent of the ordinance and make decisions based upon that. There's nothing in any of these ordinances with boards and commissions that give people the expectation that upon reappointment, if it's a council action, that they are entitled to it.
Right.
Just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Well, what do other council members feel about Bill's suggestion? Christine or Sam or?
I don't mind reappointing them because I think they're amicably qualified. I do think they should be subject to the term limits of whatever we decide, meaning this might be their last term until they have to take a term off. So I'm happy to move forward with them now with that expectation.
Well, no, I think that what the expectation is that we would not do the appointments now until the code has passed and then do the appointments
If
afterwards.
that's needed, then, if that's needed, sorry, I didn't necessarily understand, Kate. I thought it could be applied retroactively.
No.
It can't be applied, so if you apply them now, I think their expectation is that they're subject to the existing ordinance that does not include the term limit
Then I would
requirements.
say wait, I guess. Yeah. They don't expire till August, so I don't think it's.
Don't expire to August. I think I could have an ordinance to you before August for probably first and second reading. Now, whether that effective date would be there, but I think you could appoint subject to the new ordinance.
Once
As
it's,
long as you make the motion that it's subject to the new ordinance. If it's been passed at second reading, you just haven't had that 30-day.
right, but still you're saying we should hold off onto these appointments until a lot closer and there's actually a drafted ordinance.
I think legally that creates,
Yes,
that allows you to apply the term limits.
right.
Could we also do a short-term extension of their board term if we weren't ready
Yes, we
at
could.
some point in the future?
I think you can.
Yeah.
Can I clarify something just so to understand, because it's hard to picture. So if we approve this summer, everyone who, theoretically, there's 5 people on the Wheeler board that have exceeded our proposed term limits, they will all be at their last term, is what we're,
Subject to reappointment after adoption of the ordinance.
Yeah.
So I haven't asked Nicole to get me those numbers yet to understand how that staggers, if at all. So what I'm looking at and what I'm evaluating is, would they all come up for expiration of term limits on the same year? Because that could create an issue, as we discussed last night. And so we're looking into that to understand what their appointments are, to see if there is some staggering there, or if they would all come up and be term limited at the same time,
Right.
the same year.
but even if it was staggered, it would only be by a year or 2.
Probably.
So potentially 4 or 5 people will
Pretty
be term
significant
limited.
turnover.
Turnover in the next 3 to 5 years.
I'm evaluating sort of how to address that, to give you
Okay.
some flexibility, so that you don't lose all that institutional knowledge at the same time.
Yeah. I'd support approving them tonight so that they potentially have 6
So
more
they would be
years.
the
Yeah, they
longer-
would be the longer-term people so that we have people.
There's some logic there.
Insightful thought, and I think that would give you a little bit more stability in the institutional knowledge that this board has had for several years. That's one option to think about. I mean, certainly there's pros and cons to both approaches.
I like that idea, Christine, frankly. I find it kind of awkward, and it's not, obviously, it's not about these individuals. And I know that it's not about these individuals, Bill, from your personal point of view and term limits in general. But by not appointing them now, it makes it seem like it's about those people instead of just moving forward with these and then letting the natural play of the term limits come into effect on future appointments.
Good point.
And so I would make, to see, is there a motion to reappoint Ziska and Nina?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. I think we can have further council discussion if we'd like. Bill, I think your general initiative is going forward. It may not be timely enough for this one go-around, but it's going forward.
Yeah, and I have no issue with Ziska or Nina. I won't support this vote only because I think that we've talked about something, and I think we should stick to our principles on that and not deviate, especially given how recently we talked about it. But it is certainly not personal to these 2 individuals.
Right.
I just would prefer to get that new initiative underway before we appointed anyone. And I would do the same thing for Kids First.
Respectfully, I appreciate that. Do you have anything to add, Sam? or-
I'm good.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Will you call the roll? Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. And then the only one we have left here is the grants. And I'm open to hearing from each of you who would be your top 2 regular members you'd like to support.
Tracy and Mark for me.
Okay, Sam?
You can skip me for now.
Okay,
Jane,
just-
Jane and Mark are flip a coin. They're both great, but Tracy reapplying unspoken rule.
Okay, so you're for
I'm gonna see
Tracy?
if someone else has a stronger opinion first.
Okay. Others over here?
I'd support Tracy and Jane.
Okay. Okay, John?
I thought all 3 candidates were really well qualified, but I'm going to go with Tracy and Jane.
Okay. Thank you. Boy, this is really a tough one. I know all of these individuals, I know they all care and they all do a good job with this. I think it's interesting we are getting a little new blood on this committee. I will support Tracy going forward, and I would support Jane as well.
It was a good skip on my part, all right.
Okay, so where are you going?
Tracy and Jane's fine, yeah.
Okay.
I just like, I wanted to see if people had stronger opinions than me on those two. I respect
It's almost
it.
a flip a coin, and it's
yeah.
so awkward.
Mark is great.
And you know, the way these things happen, maybe someone's going to end up resigning or not being able to fulfill it, and we'll be able to call back to these people.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we see? Oh, the running kids.
Run group.
Oh.
Yeah, coming around.
Big group.
That's pretty cool. I thought you saw some elk out there, so almost. Okay, so I would make the motion that Jane Partiger, which I have a hard time. Pargeter, and Tracy Anderson be appointed to the Grants Review Committee. And someone must second.
Second.
Okay, thank you, John. Nicole, will you call the roll?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you. And the next thing on our agenda is to go into an executive session. We will be leaving this room and reconvening in our little council room to do that so that Grassroots is able to go home. We do not take we do not take action, formal action in executive sessions, but we will help determine positions for future negotiations. And I'll have the city attorney give us our citations, and then I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I know I read these every time, so I apologize for the repetitiveness. but I
No,
have
it's
to do
okay.
it.
It's good for the record. Always make the record.
Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402, staff is requesting an executive session pursuant to 4 sub A of that section, the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interests, except that no executive session shall be held for the purpose of concealing the fact that a member of the local public body has a personal interest in such purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale. Subsection 4, subsection B, conferences with an attorney for the local public body for purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. In subsection 4, subsection E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The specific items of discussion involve the following: the lease, transfer, or acquisition of real property or property interests, in contract negotiations and communications with counsel regarding such subjects. Due to market forces, negotiation strategies, and confidentiality demands of the parties involved, and necessitated by the subject of the specific legal advice, which further disclosure would be a detriment to the city's strategic position, exact properties cannot be disclosed. And the second item is the Centennial Owners Association v. City of Aspen litigation, otherwise known as case number 2015 CB 030158 and 2017 CA 2002099. That is the appeals number, and that's concluded. As is the usual, council will adjourn both the executive session and regular meeting out of the Electric Pass Conference Room, and a recording of the executive session will be held by the clerk for no less than 90 days.
Is there a motion to go into executive session based on those citations?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll for us one last time, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Grassroots. We appreciate your work.